What's going on, everybody? Today I'm going to be talking to you about Freedom Boat Club. I was a member for 2 years and I thought I'd share my experiences with you. So I'm going to give an overview for those who don't know anything about the club. I'll tell you the pros and cons. I'll tell you why I quit. I'll give some tips for members, and finally I'll recommend who should join the club. I'll put links in the timeline to these different sections so you can skip ahead if you like. Be sure to leave a comment if I forgot anything or if you want to just share your own experiences. I'm sure other people would find it useful. But let's get started. So joining Freedom Boat Club, there's a sign-up fee initially. For me, it was $5,500, but Coast Guard told me that some people were signing up for $600. I don't know if that's true, but what I do know is there are better times to sign up than others. Like if there's a boat show, usually there's a special or something. Besides the sign-up fee, then you have your monthly fee, and that differs on what type of plan you have. So the highest tier plan is use the boat anytime, and that was $414 for me. There's a weekday only plan that's $300. And then if you're a member, you can join the light plan, which is $200 a month, and you only get to use the boat 8 times a year. It kind of seems more like if you want to put your reservation on hold and not lose the sign-up fee, because you do lose it if you quit the club. They do let you use it towards the down payment of one of their boats though. They also offer insurance, so if you mess up the boat somehow, they offer for $500 a year, you can get coverage for that. My first year that I was a member, I had 0 boating experience, so it was really good to get that insurance. Second year, I had a lot more experience. I'd taken out the boat a ton of times, and yeah, I just felt a lot more confident that I wouldn't get into any accidents or anything, so I didn't go for that. But that might not have been the best decision. I mean, obviously nothing happens, so it kind of saved me $500, but you know, anything can happen, especially out on Puget Sound with all the crap floating in the water and stuff like that. Besides that, there's no other fees you have to pay. You show up to the marina, you take out the boat, and when you bring it back, they see how much gas you used, and that's all you're paying. They do have certain boats that you have to rent from them. Like they have these cruiser class boats. They're basically like an RV on the water. You got like a bed, a bathroom, a sink, kitchenette sort of stuff. And you can take those out. They're like $100 a day or something. And then there's some wakeboarding boats, I believe, that were $50 a day. But I might not be sure on that one. I had no interest in wakeboarding or any of those things, so I didn't take any stock in that. Also, you can rent downriggers from them, and downriggers are $20 a day, but they come with the cannonball and the line clips. So how the reservation process works is with your membership, you get 4 reservations besides the light plan, and they're rolling reservations, so you can book all 4, and then when one of your reservations is complete, you can rebook again. But if you've used up all 4 of your reservations for something far in the future, like when I booked a trip to Florida, I had used up all my reservations, but I was still able to take a boat out at the local clubs. I just call ahead, and if a boat's available the next day, you can book it without using up one of your reservations. Also, you can be put on wait lists, and if stuff becomes available, like especially on the weekend, most boats are taken out, so you get put on a wait list, and that doesn't count as one of your reservations. The nice thing about Puget Sound is there was a lot of clubs within an hour drive from my house. So there's Edmonds, Paulsbo, Port Orchard, and Tacoma and Olympia. Combined, they got a ton of boats, so it was usually pretty easy for me to get a boat out there. So one of the great things about the club that I liked was that they've got locations all over the country besides those 5 I mentioned that are close to me, and you can take those boats out as well. There are limits on those though. Each club has a limit to how many reciprocal reservations they can have at a time. So I bumped into that a couple times, once in Florida and once in Texas, where there were already a bunch of people booked, so I had to bump it to the next week or something like that, or I was limited to 3 the one time, 3 reservations of my 4. But usually if you plan far enough ahead, you can get something. And when you're booking travel, I mean, you got to book ahead like a month or 2 in advance anyways, unless you want to pay a lot for airline tickets and stuff. So it's really not a big deal making the boat reservations at the same time and making sure you get something. So they have a lot of great staff, and they're super helpful a lot of the time and really accommodating. Like one time my downrigger broke, the line just got weak and snapped, and the guy came and put on whole new terminal gear for me and didn't charge me anything. Another time, well, quite a few times actually, I wasn't sure if somebody was going to meet me out for the day, and I would say to them, hey, I don't know if I'm going to use your downrigger, because they knew I had one, and they just throw on a downrigger on the boat, and if nobody showed up, they wouldn't charge me for it, and if I needed the downrigger, I got charged. So that was pretty sweet of them to do that, instead of having to pay just in case. Because a lot of people, I find, bail on you when you offer to take them out. Another good thing about the boat club is the early self-checkouts. So if you want to leave before the marina opens, like most of the clubs open at 9 or 10, you can book an early self-checkout. So basically you show up, you get the key from a box usually, and let yourself in, and you fill out a form and just get on the boat and go. And then when you come back, they check you in and you do the gas stuff and everything else. So that's pretty sweet, but you can only take it out during daytime hours, so that varies. And usually you have to have it back before, like an hour before sunset. Another really good thing about the boat club is if you're planning on getting a boat, it gives you the opportunity to try so many different types of boats, like pontoon boats, center consoles, just to see what you want to get for your own sort of thing. That said, I got a boat that's completely different from anything they have, but they don't have any aluminum boats like the Alumawelds or Hughescraft type boats. They used to have one, a Thunderjet, and they got rid of that, and I kind of wish I had bought that one, because that was a pretty sweet boat. So yeah, when I started boating with them, I had 0 experience with the boat. I didn't even know how to engage the throttle on a boat, and they taught me everything. So when you sign up for the club, they make you do a 3 or 4 hour course. It's all instruction, and it was Zoom for me, but I don't know if they do in-person instructing now or what, because that was during COVID. But yeah, it was 3 hours of instruction. They teach you everything about using the boat and navigating the Puget Sound with commercial vessels and ferries and everything else, and the maps and where it's safe to go and not. And yeah, that was really informative. And the guy, he was ex-Coast Guard or something, really knowledgeable guy. He actually taught me stuff that people who've been boating for years don't even know about, like this torpedo zone near Paulsbo, and I don't know, lots of things. But once you get done that, they take you out on the water for 3 or 4 hours, and they teach you how to actually use the boat. It's like a hands-on training, and that was pretty sweet. They teach you emergency stops and tying up the boat, how to keep the boat straight when you're stopping it, and little things that people wouldn't really think to tell you how to do, if you're just having your buddy teach you, sort of thing. So that was really good. And then that's the basic training. Once you've done all that, then they let you take the boats out and do what you want. But to use those cruiser class vessels that I mentioned before, the $100 ones, they require separate training, and that's more like an offshore training. But they also have these front thrusters, I can't remember what they're called, and they teach you how to use those. There's also a hands-on training for that. But they teach you about like crossing bars, even though none of the local clubs allow you to go cross any bars. But they teach you anyways, and that one was really useful. It comes in handy if you go to like Florida or Texas or California, where they let you go offshore. And if you don't have that training, you can't go offshore. So another thing about the club is most of their boats are 22 footers with 175 to 200 horsepower engines. And if you look into how much it costs to buy one of those boats, it's like at least 120 grand sort of thing. So your $400 a month fee is nothing compared to a boat loan for that same type of vessel. Even I ended up getting a boat, and it's a 16 footer, and I'm paying with my insurance slightly less than I was with the club. So it is really good value in that respect. But even better than the difference in the price is not having to do all the crap associated with owning a boat. Like, I just got my own, and it is a pain. I'm not gonna lie. Like, every time you take out the boat, you gotta rinse it off because it's salt water, and you gotta run water through the engine for 10 minutes. And there's cleaning the boat, and gassing the boat is a pain as well. Like, you gotta use non-ethanol gasoline, and not all the places around you sell that stuff. So it can be tough. There are 2 places by me, but you got to launch the boat to get to them. And so that's kind of a pain, just launching your boat just to go fill up from fishing somewhere else. There's also maintenance on the engine. So for my engine, there's a 20-hour, and every 100 hours you have to do maintenance. And all those usually involve an oil change and a gearbox oil change. And I just did my 20-hour, and that was $120 in oil and parts. You got to buy these little washers to replace. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's what you got to do just to maintain the warranty on your motor. And then there's like a 200 hours. It's like a full maintenance deal where you got to change spark plugs and all sorts of other stuff, and that one is going to be really expensive. So there's the maintenance part. That's terrible. Another good thing about the club is boat ramps. Launching your own boat is kind of a pain. The ramps right by my house, you can't even access them at low tides. So you got to plan your trips on when the boat launch is actually usable. And then also during peak fishing times, there's a lot of people that want to use the launch. So you're waiting for people to launch their boat, and there's lineups. Unless you want to show up at like 4 a.m. to get first in line, you're gonna have to wait for people, and it can be kind of frustrating. I don't have too much experience with it, but I've already seen a few times that there are a lot of stupid people out there. It's like driving, only worse. I just don't understand how people who have owned boats for so long, based on what their boats look like, can't even back up trailers and stuff. And just sticking around doing who knows what on the ramp while everybody is waiting to come off, you know? It can get frustrating. So you don't have to deal with any of that with Freedom Boat Club, because they've got marinas where you launch from, and you can launch anytime you want, besides nighttime. But yeah, and you're not dealing with these people, so that's a really big advantage. But yeah, that brings me to the bad parts, which no night fishing, which is kind of sucks. Also, you're limited to where they have locations. So for me, there's places I want to fish that they just don't have boat clubs for, and that's unfortunate. Also, the boats really aren't rigged the way you want. You know, they don't have the nicest fish finders. Like for example, my kayak had a better fish finder than the boats. A lot of their boats have these Simrads, and I really don't like Simrads. They're terrible fish finders, I think. A lot of them don't have side scans, there's no live scopes, so there's no trolling motors, you know, little things that you'd want on your own boat, they don't have. And yeah, no radar, that's another thing that'd be good, especially with the fog. But they don't really want you taking the boats out when it's foggy, so that's another limitation. Actually, another thing was, speaking about that, some boats didn't even have cup holders, and you don't realize how much you like cup holders till you don't have them. Another bad thing is, since you're taking a lot of boats out, you get stopped a lot by the Coast Guard. Like last year I got stopped 3 times on 3 different boats, and they just stop the boat, and they usually try to do everybody like once a year sort of thing to make sure everybody's safety equipment's on the up and up. But if you're taking out different boats a lot like I was, there's high probability that you're going to get pulled over by the Coast Guard, and that wastes like half an hour of your time. But you know, that's part of boating. Like if you have your own boat, you're gonna get stopped out there at least one time. It's just now you're getting several times instead of one. So going back to their boats, those boats, they're all 22 footers with those 200 horsepower engines. So bad thing is they use up a lot of gas when you're going to different places. So right now my boat is a 75 on a 16 footer, so I use almost nothing in gas, relatively speaking. And you know, the boats are really nice, but I didn't take a lot of people out in them. Maybe a few times here and there, but the boats just were too much for my use. And not everybody's gonna have the same problem, you know, like if you're taking out a pontoon boat with 10 of your friends all the time, then you're not gonna be, you're gonna be on the other end of the spectrum where you may want more space. I've actually been told that less space is an unusual request, so everybody wants more boat apparently. Another bad thing is peak times like weekends and holidays can be tough to get a boat. Really depends though if you put on the wait list. Like most of the time I've gotten boats, but yeah, it can be tough. Like 4th of July weekend and Memorial Day, you're probably gonna have a hard time getting that unless you're booking months in advance, and everybody knows this, so they're probably gonna be doing the same. Another bad thing is there's no wait lists for reciprocal reservations. I mean, there are wait lists, but you don't get called for it and stuff. And final bad thing is that you're paying these monthly fees and you're getting no equity in a boat, if there is such a thing. I'm told it's just a hole in the water for money or something like that. So that brings me to why I quit. The main reasons that I quit was where I wanted to fish. They don't have locations, like out in CQ and Astoria, off the coast of Washington. They don't really have any clubs, and you're also not allowed to fish in the Strait of Juan de Fuca, so off Port Angeles and Squim area, you can't go. You can go through the San Juans, which is nice, but just a lot of the places that I wanted to fish, and there's a lot of lakes they don't have clubs on, so that was a major factor. Another factor was I just plan on doing less traveling in the next couple of years. Like if I do go traveling, I just want to go see family. I'm kind of sick of it, to be honest. Traveling has gotten worse, believe it or not, in the last 2 years. And yeah, I don't know why, but yeah, it just isn't as fun anymore. Like, I just find the whole experience a chore. So I'm probably not going to go on too many fishing trips. And that's probably one of the best parts of this club is the reciprocal reservation stuff. Another thing was, yeah, I just wanted my own boat so I could customize it the way I want with everything and not spend so much money on gas and everything. So, yeah, those were the main three. I think a lot of little factors, but yeah, overall, I could see myself being a member again. Like, if I start traveling more, like in a few years' time, maybe things will get better with the airlines and everything else. And I'll be traveling again, and I could see myself joining just for the reciprocal stuff. There is one guy I know, and he has his own boat, and he still has a membership, and he finds it totally worth it as well. So, yeah, I'll probably end up being like that guy in the future. But just for now, it just isn't financially viable for me. Anyways, moving on, I'll move to the tips section. First tip is definitely tip your dock hands. They will charge you $100 cleaning fee if you return the boat in a bad state. So I've never gotten charged that, and I've returned the boat in some horrendous states, blood and guts all over the place. And yeah, they didn't charge me that, but usually when I did that, I give them $20 for tip, and so I never had an issue. I've heard of other people, and I'm like, you probably didn't tip the guy, because yeah, there's no way you left the boat as bad as I have. So I mean, that's fishing though. And you know, the nice thing with the club is, even though people take the boats out and get blood and guts all over it, it's every time you go and take out the boat, they've done a good job, and it's spick and span, you know. Another tip that you should definitely do is take a picture of the fuel used gauge. I did that every time, but it only helped me out one time, and that one time it almost cost me $200 if I hadn't have done it. The dockhand in Galveston obviously fat fingered it and didn't put in the correct fuel, and then I took the boat out and I went offshore, and it was a big gas bill anyways that day. It was gonna be like $200, but the guy, he's like, okay, that's $400. I'm like, what the hell? And then I'm like, how much was used? And then we went over that and realized that the first entry was wrong. So I showed him the picture, he saw the timestamp, and he changed it and made it good. So definitely take the picture of the fuel gauge. Another tip is that entry fee. I think I mentioned it before, but you can use that towards purchasing your own boat through them. So all their boats are 3 years or newer, and once they retire it, they put it on the market, and I'll put a link for that. So you can use your entry fee as a down payment. But unfortunately for me, none of their boats were kind of what I wanted or suitable for my uses. Definitely another tip was, I think I mentioned this before as well, was definitely wait for deals on the entrance fee, like boat shows and stuff. They'll have promotions, so maybe even get in touch with them before you plan on being a member so that you can take advantage of any membership deals. Ask them about that, because that's the biggest barrier to entry. I mean, literally, I guess, is that entrance fee. And I think they'd probably have more people signing up if the entrance fee wasn't so much, but at the same time, you probably keep a lot of undesirable members out. So it's a balancing act for them, I'm sure, and they're running a decent business, so they obviously know what they're doing. Another thing is definitely buy your own downrigger. I saved a lot of money by doing that, but I took the boat out a lot of times, and I bought my downrigger when they were cheap. It was like 400 and something. So, I mean, you think about it, 400 bucks, 20 bucks a time. That's like, if you use your own downrigger 20 times, you've paid for it. Goes back to the no equity sort of thing. But the bad thing about that too is you got to maintain it yourself. You break it, you got to buy something. I mean, I guess if you lose the Freedom Boat Club stuff too, you'd have to pay for it. They mentioned that about anchors. If you lose the anchor, you got to buy it. I guess instead of quitting like I did, probably go to a light plan for 200 bucks a month. I wasn't able to do that. My wife wanted me to use the same amount of money we were spending on the boat club on the boat, so I couldn't keep that. But it'll probably be 2 or 3 years down the road if I join again. And I do see myself joining again. That brings me to the final section, which is who I'd recommend this for. I definitely don't regret joining the club because it really helped me as an inexperienced boater, and I'd highly recommend anybody else in the same situation who has zero experience with boats and just wants to learn and try a bunch of different stuff out. You know, if you don't know anybody to take you out there and show you everything, this is like a really good way to get into boating. Other people would be definitely people that travel a lot and can use the reciprocal reservations, because otherwise you're paying ridiculous amounts for boat rentals. And the third set of people I would say should join the club are people who just don't have time for boat maintenance and everything else that goes along with boat ownership. Yeah, it's really convenient, like especially for me. My boat club right by me is 10 minutes down the road, so I was out on the water in like less than half an hour, and the launch that I use is right next to the boat club, and it takes me a lot longer to launch my boat than it does to just pop over to Freedom Boat Club. So yeah, hopefully this gives you a bit more insight into Freedom Boat Club, and give me a thumbs up if it helped you out at all.